Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our talk. First one on a Tuesday night, and I'm really happy that everyone's here to join us. So today we're going to be talking about, well, unpacking the overachieving Asian. And I am your host. I am Sabrina. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Calm Collective, where we are working towards the mission of normalizing mental health conversations in Asia and beyond, hopefully. So today, we're talking about the overachieving Asian, and very often these two words are kind of put together, and I think there's a lot to unpack over there. And this afternoon, I was just kind of reflecting on this topic, and I was like, oh my goodness, I am going to be reflecting and unpacking some trauma here today. And today we're joined by a few of our speakers, Geraldine, Asnawi, and Audrey. I'd like to invite them, yes, to the show today. And yeah, we're so happy to have them. And very shortly, I'll just be getting them to introduce themselves. And, we're just going back to the whole idea of the overachieving Asian, right? I'm sure some of us in the room here, I don't know about you, but some of us may have had a tiger mom. Maybe you've also been exposed to the influence of peer pressure or maybe the media. Like the media has always shown a spotlight on examination results. It's always celebrated, and on the other hand, failures are often kind of like hidden or cast to one side. We don't talk about that, and so the pressure to achieve in our Asian culture is very real. Whether you're in Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, other parts of Asia, or whether you're in the US or in the West, where you're like the model Asian, there's just so much expectations that Asians have to live up to, and it can get really tough, right? So today we have a few folks in the room, Audrey, Geraldine, Asnawi, and I'd like to get them to introduce themselves. And as you're introducing yourself, I'd like to also know how you would describe your relationship with achievement. All right, so let's go. Okay, let's start with Geraldine. Why don't you introduce yourself first?
Hi everyone, my name is Geraldine Pia. So I care about the challenges and aspirations of our generation, and I create content around how we can all achieve success in our professional as well as personal lives, and at the same time also give back to our society and make it a better place. So that's my main role. But of course, outside my role as a content creator, I actually work for Israeli SaaS startup where I help to lead the commercial business here in Asia Pacific. And yeah, that's a bit about myself. So as for the second question around the what is my relationship like with achievement, I would say that achievement is something that I enjoy and I love. So it's kind of like I do feel that I have a somewhat positive, not entirely positive, but like majority positive kind of relationship with achievement itself.
Yeah, definitely. I think this what we want to kind of tease out today is that is achievement really a bad thing at the end of the day? Not really, right? Because it gets us achieving certain goals. It helps put food on the table. Very practical things like that. It also helps us feel good, and it also helps us do good, right? So, thank you, Geraldine, for sharing that, and I'd like to invite Asnawi to share next.
Hi everyone, my name is Asnawi. You can call me Nawi for short. Currently, I'm in a Series A company, so I oversee the operations here in Southeast Asia. Besides that, I think a big part of me is in gymnastics. So I was a competitive gymnast since I was 7 all the way till 18. Before I went to SMU studying business management, majoring in marketing and strategic management. I started my career as a management consultant in PwC before moving to sales and BD in Salesforce and then moving over to this startup. A bit about myself. At the side as well, on weekends, I coach gymnastics to students, and I'm also a gymnastics judge. Yeah, so that's a big part of my life outside of my professional career on Monday to Friday. What is my relation to achievement? So I think for me, achievement is something for me, it's like a competition with myself. So my own mindset or my own motto is to always strive to be the best version of myself. So I always try to improve bits of myself, either personally, professionally, or even amongst like friendship with people or with my family. So every day I try to be better. And for me, that's my own relationship with achievement.
Thank you so much, Asnawi, for sharing that. Audrey, over to you. Please introduce yourself and your relationship with achievement.
Hi everyone, I'm Audrey. I am a career advisor, coach at the local university. I partner youth to, embark on their career development journey, job search, and along the way, hopefully, I can impart some wisdom and guide them to somewhat achieve clarity of their life's work and purpose. Sounds like a lot, but life and career are often intertwined together. So yeah, that's what I do in my day job. And I volunteer with Calm Collective Asia as a facilitator in Calm Circles. So some of you may know me or have partnered with me before. So yeah, my relationship with achievement, to me, I see it as something external of myself, like, external validation, could be winning awards, gaining the 5 Cs, used to be something very lauded in Singapore, Asian countries. Yeah, and it's a lot to unpack, and I hope that today I can offer some insights and to hear from the speakers. Yeah.
Definitely, and same for me, Audrey. So, I guess as we go into the conversation, right, I just wanted to invite everyone to also share their own questions. So any one of you tuning in right now, if you have any questions, please just drop them in the Q&A. Or if you have any thought to share as well, if you agree or strongly disagree with what someone has had to say, feel free to put that in the chat, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, I really appreciate all three of you sharing your intros and your relationship with achievement. So immediately off the bat, I hear like different aspects of what achievement can both look and feel like, right? So I think Audrey, you mentioned that achievement can look like certain, I guess, external measures of success. In Singapore, that's having the 5 Cs, which are like your car, condo, credit card, something, something. I don't know anymore. But yeah, basically, ticking all of that off. As now you mentioned that, for you, it's more about an internal measure of achievement. You're kind of competing with yourself at the end of the day. And Geraldine, you started off with that kind of like a big purpose statement right there, right? And it's really inspiring. But I also do wonder what that means for your day to day and how you, kind of like find a healthy balance to work towards that mission, right? So so I have a question to kind of get this started. So would you say that you're an overachiever? Just, judging yourself. I'm gonna ask Asnawi first.
For me, I think I don't see myself as an overachiever. I just see myself as someone that is driven to achieve what I hope to achieve in my life, in my lifetime now, right? And for me, my dream is always to make my parents proud. I think when I was a little boy, I watched this advertisement. It's about this UK guy that bought an island for I think a few $100s, and then it became like a big hotel island. And that was Sir Richard Branson. So when I watched that, I actually told my mom that one day I'll buy an island for her. Yeah, so that has always been like my dream, right? To buy a few $100s island,
That's
hopefully
incredible.
somewhere in Indonesia, and then I mean that was the big dream lah. Yeah, so it was always for me lah, in terms of whether I'm an overachiever. I don't think I am. It's more of like I'm driven to do what I hope to do lah, which is to make my parents proud. When I was really young, I was to buy an island. For now, obviously, I realize island might not be the best, but it's the same thing. I just want my parents proud. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's what I think.
yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of things that also go into maintaining the island. But I know I've been following Richard Branson's story, and it's incredible, right? How he's put together the entire island. Asnawi, I do wonder. I wanted to ask you. So you mentioned that you want to make your parents proud. So where does that come from for you?
I think for me, I came from a very humble background. My parents, we had a tough life growing up, right? To be honest, like McDonald's was a luxury for us. So I think my drive has always been to make sure that when I'm able to provide for my parents and take care of them, I can make sure that I can do it well, and that I can prove to them that all the sacrifices that they've done for me, it's not wasted lah. It's something that I feel that it's my duty as a son, yeah, to provide for them and to take care of them and to make sure that to show them that they've done a good job in raising me up, hopefully, and that I can give back to them. Yeah, so I think that's where my drive comes from. My parents, really.
Well, that really resonates because I think I don't know, but in our culture, filial piety, being loyal to our family, to our parents, that's something that definitely stands out in our society. So I love to know whether Geraldine, that's been one of your driving factors as well. What are your thoughts on that, and what drives you?
Yep. So in terms of the drive, right? I would think that a lot of my friends will ask me like, oh, is it because like your parents put like a lot of pressure on you, is why you're so driven as a person? And truth be told, my parents are actually quite chill. Like they don't really place like a huge emphasis on grades or like how much salary I bring home and things like that. They don't have that kind of like what we call expectations to be like doctor, lawyers and everything. So I would say that that has given me a lot of freedom when I'm young. So through that kind of like upbringing, a lot of my drive actually comes from inside. So I think at the start of this, when we first logged in before everyone else did, Sabrina was like asking me like, okay, where does your drive come from? It's like, I don't know, it's just a feeling, right? An emotion that it comes from inside, because like the feeling of winning is nice. Like when you do well, you give your best, you live up to your fullest potential. I think that's a really, really satisfying kind of emotion to experience. But going back, of course, to your first question about like whether I feel that I'm an overachiever, I think that the way I define an overachiever is someone who does well in all aspects of life, right? Like every single like aspect. And if that is the definition, then I wouldn't consider myself one, because there's still a lot of room for improvement, to grow and to develop myself also.
I mean, I'm definitely hearing a growth mindset there, and one that's really healthy, right? I think oftentimes we feel like, okay, once I've achieved this, and this, I am set for life, I have made it. But then we're like, wait a minute, is that really making me happy? So, Audrey, I would love to know from your perspective, especially coaching university students at such critical points in their lives, right? Are you seeing them also having that pressure to achieve, and at what point might it become unhealthy?
Yeah, thanks, Sabrina. I think first and foremost, I don't want to overgeneralize the experiences of everyone in university, because evidently each of us define achievement differently. But if I may quote a recent survey results published or done by the inter-university network of local university students, majority of them stated work and study commitments as a major source of stress. And from it comes that a lot of university students have a somewhat unhealthy obsession with grades, achieving more and more, getting on dean's list and whatsoever. Well, by itself, achievement is all right, yeah. But what happens when you go overboard with it, sometimes at the expense of your health, well-being, which some of the students, or in fact many of them, are also undergoing through pressures on that area as well. So they are all interrelated somewhat. And of course, throw in the unsure of career prospects or opportunities. That's when career advisors like us, like myself, come in as well to provide that support and to partner with them, to explore what else is it out there. How do you define achievements? How do you want to shape the future of work? What does it look different for you? So these are some of the questions that I may ask the students during my own coaching sessions. And then to kind of bring it back to myself, I don't identify myself as an overachiever. I think I see myself more as an overthinker in the sense that, I seem to have like tick many boxes of what seems to be successful in many people's eyes, but somehow I still feel that, there are certain areas that I could have done better or, I didn't have. So some of it comes from that scarcity mindset and comparison, obviously, with others. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think honestly, I think a lot of this whole pressure to achieve or succeed really starts with the mindset, and the mindset is then influenced by societal pressures from ourselves, maybe peers as well. So I think I want to just understand a little bit more about where that mindset comes from, right? So I think as now you brought up a little bit about like being making your parents feel proud. Geraldine, it's coming more internally. I want to ask the both of you, just to understand the whole Asian perspective a bit better. So, to what extent would you say that your, I guess, Asian upbringing has influenced your drive to achieve or succeed or work towards your goals? Maybe as now first.
I think my family, in terms of Asian upbringing, I think my parents quite chill also. It's not like a typical,
Nice.
Asians that, or, friends that you might hear of. I mean, I never got like the rotan before. I never got smacked before or anything. My parents don't put pressure on me at all. So for me, I feel that like the Asian influence and stuff, it didn't really affect me. But what affected me, I think it's the fact that I'm a minority. So I think the fact that I'm a minority in Singapore helped me and gives me more drive. Primarily because I feel that for me especially, like I want to prove to myself that no matter who you are, where you come from, what background, you can still succeed lah. Yeah. So for me, I would say like my upbringing lah, but I think it's my surrounding. Like being in this circumstance, like being in Singapore minority, then how can you use that as a driver for you to push forward, to try to succeed, to try to be the best version of yourself lah. So to me, it always goes back to that. Yeah. So that's a bit about my side.
So how would you then benchmark yourself, as you were kind of like growing up and kind of defining your goals and benchmarks, right?
So I think when I was younger, because my whole family is in gymnastics, my sister, my brother. So I have an older sister, younger brother, both also was in national gymnastics. They were a lot better than me. So I always competed with them.
Oh, you had them to compete with. Okay.
Yeah, I always competed with them, so I always try my best. But then I realized that, okay, maybe gymnastics is not the best for me. And then I wanted to still succeed, but maybe succeed in a new way or succeed in something else. So that's when I started focusing more on like maybe my studies and then trying to get out of the gymnastics scene, doing something that my family don't usually do, which is always gymnastics my whole life. My whole life from primary school all the way to junior college was gymnastics, right? So I think a lot of people would expect you to be a sports person, a sports coach, But for me, I wanted to, be different. So for me, I guess my benchmark is my siblings. They're doing so well in gymnastics. They're all professional coaches, doing super well in the industry. I wanted to make a mark for myself, a name for myself. So I decided to look elsewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And Geraldine, how about you? What are your thoughts on? Yeah, I know that you also mentioned that your thankfully your parents didn't give you much pressure, right? But how about like what was it like for you with your peers and maybe even colleagues at work?
I guess that while I didn't grow up in a very like typical Asian kind of like household, definitely environment still plays a part, right? So there's this Buddhist saying that goes that if you wrap paper around incense, it smells like incense, and if you wrap a string around the fish, then it will smell like the fish. So definitely we are all products of our environment, and I experienced I guess the most kind of external stress when I was actually in Victoria JC. So this was back in, I think, a couple of years ago. And I actually came from a more diverse school, I guess, which has a wide range of streams, right? Normal technical, normal academic, express, and all that. So academic achievement wasn't like a huge focus. But at that point in time, in my cohort in VJ, I think there was this huge focus around like achievement, right? So there's this whole pressure to do well, like not only your studies, it's just like one part, okay, studies, like also by your CCA, right? And then like, you know, everything, like the way you, whether you have enough portfolio. And then when I went to university, I realized like this changed, the currency changed from, you know, grades itself to like, you know, how many competitive internships you can do and things like that. And then when you go to university, the currency, right, of what you call achievement changes again to, you know, the prestige of the company you work for, or the role that you have, or maybe the salary that you got. So these are all like external kind of like benchmarks as what you were speaking about earlier, that evolves over time with each of the different life stage that you grow into. So of course, like in this kind of scenario, we cannot stop like the world from like changing around us, and you know, we cannot really always control the kind of environment that we are in. But I think that what we can actually focus on is our own why and our own core and our own goals. Like when we set a goal, we need to make sure we understand the real why behind it, like what are the reasons and why do I even want it. If not, we will spend our life just playing other people's games to earn that currency that is set by society, but may not be aligned to what you really want inside. Does this make any sense?
Oh, it totally does, Geraldine. And I've also had to do that own internal, well, inner work, right? To set my own personal benchmarks of what matters to me and not be influenced by what I feel I should live up to. You know, I think as I don't know, maybe especially in Singapore, right? Because it's a small city, and there are a lot of there's just a lot of noise and pressure to conform to certain standards, right? So I see there's this question in the Q&A, and I have to just kind of address it. So someone shared that, okay, I don't want to follow the Singaporean dream, like having a BTO flat or having kids, but I get affected when I see everyone following that dream, and I'm not catching up because that's not what I want, right? Maybe Audrey, do you have anything to share about that in terms of like yeah, having that pressure to conform and setting your own benchmarks, whether it's in your personal life or in your coaching experience?
Yeah, I do agree that to a certain extent, we are a product of the environment or the system that we grew up in. Personally, for me, I can vividly remember, you know, during primary school days, that time, some of us may identify, we still have the streaming. I think till now, there's still some level aspects of that, right? Yeah. Anyway, so back then, you have to be streamed according to your grades. Yeah, so I recall that I have friends, you know, who were kind of separated from me because they were streamed to other classes, whereas I was placed in another class. And that kind of seared in me that, you know, yeah, education achievements is so important. If you don't do well, you'll be like grouped together, you know, with other students did not perform as well. So since then, it was like more or less kind of like a one singular track to education achievement, right? Like you have to go through JC in order to go university. If not, there's not much other pathways, right? If you want to progress academically. So, I mean, likewise, I also went through that route, and I went through JC, and then eventually I realized that actually I'm not that interested in the course that I thought I wanted to do. You know, because I chose the course primarily because of the salary data that was presented on newspapers, and I thought, okay, that seems to be a lucrative course to go into. I can graduate and then do something and earn a lot of money. But then it came to a point where I really realized that it's not something that I want to do. Yeah, so I changed course. So went through like a roundabout, and then landed myself through different experiences, and now I'm here. So going back to the question of how we navigate through all that, I think there will come to a point where most of us would have to do some serious self-reflection. A pause, if you may call it. I think recently it's okay, right, that people take career breaks, largely because pandemic made us realize that there's more to life than just work, and basically causes us to redefine success. So I guess that's something that we should consider, you know, pause, not necessarily to stop your work and change and do something else straight away, but more of how can I incorporate some daily pauses, breaks, to really reflect, reassess, and redefine what success means to me.
Yeah, and on a personal level too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think in your sharing, Asnawi and Geraldine, you both have shared that you've got your own internal, I guess, processes to figure out what achievement looks like for yourself, right? And so I guess my question is, how did you get to that point, to a point where you now have a healthier relationship with achieving an achievement? Asnawi.
Okay, so I think maybe I can share. So I'm not sure if any of you or anyone know about Gallup. It's Gallup Strengths. It's a big thing lah. I experienced it once in SMU. So there's this not theory but this concept where if you look at a star, right? I think Asia or being in Asian society, it always focuses you to work on what you're not strong at. So let's say you go to school, your math not very strong. Your parents will probably say, go do more math. But even though your art super good, then you're like, why? But okay, I'll just do. Right. But what you're actually having is the star is now becoming a circle because you're actually working on, if you see a star, right, the 5 ends, you're working on what's inside the star, the smaller part, the edge at the bottom.
And like the
But
edges of the star are like your strengths, right?
yeah, edges of the star is the strength, and then when you go down, that's the weakness, right? A lot of time people, Asian family or like Asian society or society in general will push you to become like a circle. So then everyone becomes a circle, right? But then after going through that course, I mean not course lah, that training or whatever you call it, like their focus was how should you leverage your strength, which is the ages, to become a big star. So you become a superstar. So the point is, for example, like if Cristiano Ronaldo was to be a scientist, like he probably won't be a great scientist, but he's good at soccer. So he that's what he followed, his passion, what he's good at. So when that happened, that's how I reframed my mind when I was in university, just focusing on what I'm good at, right? And then from that it just naturally followed lah. I always just follow what I like, what I think I'm stronger at, and then what I think I can be better at from other people. And when I do that, then I think everything follows, and that's how you get, I think, balance lah, to your question. Because when you're doing something that you like or naturally you feel like you're better at, then you will see that I feel you tend to excel better lah. Yeah, so to me that's how I see it.
That's a really, really good point. And it's something that I've personally experienced as well. Because growing up, I think we're very taught to or conditioned to focus on what we're not good at, right? Look, you got a C there, but forget about the A that you got for the other thing, right? Let's work on that C. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And personally, I've gone through that exercise after a few jobs where I was like, oh man, I really sucked at that. So let me go work on that. And I was just kind of beating a dead horse at the end of the day, right? No matter what I'm going to do, I'm going to improve, but I'm not going to be better than someone else who is just naturally better at that certain skill set. So yeah, definitely focusing on the strengths are really important and helpful. Geraldine, what about you? How do you find that balance between achievement and
I guess it's
general
pretty
well-being?
similar to what Asnawi talked about, which is like, finding your strengths. And anyway, strengths finder is great. Go and take this test because you get to learn so much about like yourself from it. And going back to this idea of strengths, maybe I can share a little bit about my younger days in school. So I'm not sure if it's still the case now, but back when I was like a teenager, I guess, there's a lot of emphasis and celebration, right, around those who do well in science and math. And I remember like A-Star and all that would come to our school and then give out all the brochures, all the scientists, like, and everything. Because I think biotech was like the cool thing and the thing back then. And then like when I went to JC, it changed. It became like accountancy. Accountancy became like the cool thing that everybody wanted to do and all that. And all those kids who do well in like physics, math and all that, they will always be the celebrated ones. So as someone who, I would consider myself someone more inclined towards humanities, languages and all those, like I guess my favorite hobby when I was young is like drawing and all that, and doing design and photography and those kind of like more creative type of pursuits. So I always felt like I didn't fit into the mold, and even if I were to work super hard, I'm just not going to be the top math student. Maybe E-math, yes, but not like A-math. There's a limit to the extent in which you can achieve. And that made me quite sad for a while and also insecure because my skills are not like quantitative. in a sense. I remember this experience when I was 21. No, 20. Yeah, I was doing an internship at the Prime Minister's Office, Public Service Division. And then there's this like fellow intern who's like, oh, what you study? Then I'm like, oh, I'm studying like journalism. And he's like, oh, journalism kids, all fluff and no substance. Then I was like, what the shit, right? Like, oh, sorry, cannot use that word.
yeah, you can.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they're like, he said that to me and I got very, very upset, actually, like
Yeah.
inside. Yeah. So, but my perspective changed. I mean, of course, at that age, probably I'm still, I haven't really fully like developed my self-confidence and everything. But when I entered my first job, I work at this company called Euromonitor. So it's a market research company, and there are two main arms actually. One is the research part, which is all the quantitative people, and the other part is the sales part, which I was from. And then I did realize something like, actually in sales you can make more than research. And then the skills that I had and the whole creativity, storytelling and everything, was more suited for a profession that could actually like earn more, right? And all that. And that made me realize like, hey, it's not about like fitting into society's mold. It's really like, how do you find your perfect place to be in?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from you is that it's really about maybe shifting your expectations of what achievement looks like, right? I mean, I think it's good and healthy to achieve, but maybe it's about changing those expectations at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, that's one, and also of course, finding your strengths and then knowing how to like align accordingly. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I hear it's a very intentional approach, right? It's not like you're gonna wake up one day and you're like, ta-da, I figured it out, right? I don't know about you, maybe Audrey, do you have anything to share about that?
Yeah, I think what Geraldine said about the science versus arts, education resonated with me because I recall in secondary school, back then it was a lot of emphasis on science subjects. So even though I was interested then in literature, I enjoy reading and all those, I still decided to go to science stream because it's very concrete and seems that everybody is saying that, you have to do science in order to be successful. So I went through all of that. And so earlier on, I mentioned about, deciding not to continue with the university. It was that I decided I want to do something meaningful with my career or job. So I took up the occupational therapy course that was in Nanyang Polytechnic. So back then it was like, oh, JC, a junior college, and then you went to poly, isn't that a waste? But actually, in order to take the OT course, you have to go through JC. You need to have A-level. So anyway, so then I kind of like rebelled against the conventional norms of what it means to be successful, at least in the education front. And led me to where I am now. So on the overachieving part, I think it's also about a scale, a balance of sort. So anything that is a burden or going in conflict against your values or your strength, as what Asnawi and Geraldine mentioned, that is going to bring about a lot of self-doubt, perhaps, or you maybe develop a kind of self-hatred or a dread towards yourself and maybe the work that you do, and it won't bode well in the long run. So I think on the career front as well is somewhat of constructing your own narratives of, again, what it means to be successful, be it in your career or in your current job or life in general. And then perhaps test out some hypotheses. Because a lot of times we think that, oh, perhaps I'm suited for this job, or this job may be something that is aligned to what I want. But then maybe you talk to people or you try out something, related to that in your current job, and you realize, hey, maybe I'm not so good at it, or it wasn't what I thought it was. And then you kind of recalibrate again. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of want to flip this whole achievement idea around, right? So, like, what are the implications of not achieving society's standards of achievement, right? Like, I think Geraldine, you were alluding to the idea of like, I guess just kind of getting judged when you're not conforming, when you're like doing journalism. It's like, what? That's it. But obviously, those benchmarks change and everything. And I'm curious to know how setting your own internal standards of success or achievement has been for you, and how have you been able to maintain your self-esteem and confidence and faith in following your own path? Maybe Geraldine, would you like to take that?
So your question is more like, if I understood it correctly,
Mm-mm.
if I were to go my own path and pursue my own definition of what I think success looks like, then how do I ensure that I can still remain confident, right? Because the rest of
Yeah.
the general population in society is thinking very differently. So to answer that, I think it's really important. The great thing about being an adult actually is that you can surround yourself with the right people. So especially the internet, like you can make friends like through LinkedIn, through communities and all those. So I'm really deliberate about the type of people that I surround myself with. So definitely zero tolerance for any kind of like, negative, judgy kind of like friends. Try to hang out with this type of like people with the same values, same alignment of vision, and also who are driven and growth oriented as well. And that has been immensely useful in like helping me maintain my core, right, of self-belief, self-esteem also. So that has been one of the important things. The second thing is that I ask myself that I only have one life. Who do I want to live for, right? If I were to pursue society standards and go on a path that, I don't really want or don't consider as success or ideal and everything, then wouldn't I be wasting this one life that I have been given technically? So that's how I actually think about things.
No, that's really, really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Asnawi, anything else to add?
Yeah, I think Geraldine very strong. I think she's very good. I mean,
Feeling it. I was
for me,
feeling
for
it.
me, I'm not that good, to be honest. I mean, society's pressure. I mean, I'm a middle child. Okay, I'm not sure how many people are middle child, but middle child syndrome to me is real. Like you always have this, please everyone and stuff. So for me, even now, sometimes I feel that, when I first graduated from university, I went to a big company first. But my dream is always to do my own thing, my own startup, right? So how I balance it internally for people who struggle with that. For me, how I did it was I set a plan for myself to at least go to jobs, go to careers, do stuff that I feel society thinks is great or something that leaves me off that pressure, because I can't, like, I don't know what the school word for that, but I don't have the gut basically to take that leap of faith. So instead, to balance that, what I did was I go big company first, then after that another big company, and then after that I realized I felt like, okay, I really done what I can to show to society that I can make it right after university. Now I want to try my own thing. So when I try my own thing, I decided, okay, the next role I want to have is to join a startup and scale it, because my eventual goal is to have my own startup, right? But because I'm so scared to take that leap of faith and then fail, right? Why not I try a startup first, so work for a company, but grow that company from 0 to 1. If I succeed, then in the future I will set up my own company. So that's my plan. So that's how I manage my own stress about not achieving to society's standards.
As now, maybe I can add something.
Go ahead.
Like the way you see yourself is more like, oh, you're not conforming to society standard of success. So that day, okay, just for context, everyone, Asnawi and me used to be from the same company, Salesforce. So that day I was catching up with some of my colleagues and then ex-colleagues. And then there's this guy, right, who was telling me that, oh, my father follow Asnawi on Facebook. And then he was telling, not Facebook, sorry, on LinkedIn, follow Asnawi on LinkedIn. And then he was saying to me, you see, Asnawi doing so well now, like leading startup, helping to grow the startup and everything. Yeah, learn from him. So you may think it's not like successful, but other people will have a different perspective.
Exactly. It's like totally subjective, right? Like sometimes it's our own internal voice that's like, there's a bit of imposter syndrome. There's a bit of like, am I really doing the right thing? Should I have stayed at that big company? Should I have not changed my career? Right? That's always gonna catch up with us. But no, but like what's most important is that we live for ourselves, right? And we listen to ourselves. But that voice is something that we need to really build up and nurture. And it's really easy to kind of listen to all the noise outside. So thank you for sharing. Audrey, like in your like encounters with the students that you coach, is there any specific advice or guidance that you provide them?
I think first, I think our students in university, I think all of them are bright, they are talented, they have their strengths, and they have their skill set of interest. Of course, that will eventually develop, become better over time with the different experiences they've had, whatnot. So I think inherently, each of us, we are creative, we are naturally resourceful, and we are whole, actually. It's just that over time, we are kind of infused with other people's expectations or what society's deemed as achieving and whatnot. And over the time, we may lose our way or lose sight of what actually drives us internally. Yeah, and sometimes we overdo certain things, right? And then that becomes overachieving and it is counterproductive. So for myself, I think one of the mental exercise that I would do is challenge my own assumptions and fears. So there was a time in my career where I was like, okay, what am I doing, right? Because I'm not exactly moving up in seniority within the organization. I seem to be doing everything and anything, but yeah, I'm not getting anywhere. And compared to my peers who are moving up the career ladder within the organization, managing people and whatnot, I am kind of like still where I was. Yeah, so that was like, okay, so what happens if I continue on this path, right? So what happens if I don't? Or what happens if I choose to venture or take a risk? What's the worst that can happen? So that's one of the things that I do. I challenge my own assumptions and also meet my fears. Of course, I'm not saying that I'm now fearless and courageous to kind of lead a super rebellious life, very different from people. In a way, I still have to think of the reality aspects. But I think in my daily life, here and there, I try to infuse a bit of creativity. We choose to do something different. Once in a while, take a different route, to the work or to anywhere else, pay more attention to my surroundings and whatnot, just to give myself some new ideas and perspectives. So these are some of the little things that I do. Yeah, and hopefully, get to figure out exactly what my life's mission is. I'm still figuring out. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I do believe that one's life mission, purpose, why also changes over time, right? Because we enter into different stages of our lives. Life happens, right? And obviously perspectives and insights come out of that may influence the way we think and the type of impact that we want to create. So yeah, thank you everyone for sharing. I just wanted to take some time for Q&A. So we do have quite a few questions that have been asked by some of you. And if you have any more, drop them in. We're going to try to cover a few of them. So I'm just going to direct it at you guys, okay, on the panel. Okay, so I have a question for Asnawi, right? So on the topic of filial piety and becoming the provider for our parents, how do you define your role as a child and what do you expect yourself to provide? How do you not guilt trip yourself? Wow.
It's quite tough.
Whoa.
How to not guilt trip myself.
Started there, I know.
I think it's hard lah, to be honest. I mean, you're always gonna think that am I doing enough? Am I making my parents proud enough? But I think for me lah, my mindset has always been if you try your best, then that's the best that you can do, right? I mean, whatever outcome, whether it's your parents or life or whatever, like as long as you try your best lah. So for me, I try my best. I'm not the perfect son for sure, right? So if, for example, if let's say some people value time, right? If that's how your parents, value, then spend more time with them. If your parents like you to bring a partner over more often, then do that, right? So for me, it's just trying to see what I feel make my parents happiest lah. Like I know my mom, likes me to buy bubble tea, for example, small thing, right? Then I just buy it whenever I go bubble tea. My dad likes to talk about, maybe religion. So I talk to him about religion and politics also, Singapore politics. So yeah, I think it's just, your parents best. I think for me lah, I always don't like to put too much pressure on myself, although I always put a lot of pressure on myself. But just try your best lah. I feel let's put your best foot forward. And then whatever comes, and I feel like I always believe that whatever challenges you have, or whatever obstacles thrown at you, you can always overcome them. Right. So just take one thing at a time, one step at a time, and then I think you'll be fine. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Definitely. I think it's we're prone to give ourselves a lot of pressure and it can seem like a lot, right? So how do you then break it down into smaller steps that you can take. And I really like that you kind of like understood your parents' like love language and little things that can make a difference that go a long way, right? Because the
Yeah, if I don't
conventional
understand,
wisdom.
they will actually message me what they want. So then I just do what they want.
Well, it's good that they're direct as well. So, all right, thank you for sharing. Okay, another question for, let's see. Okay, I'll give this to Audrey. So, how do you draw that fine line between drive and growth and overachievement?
Yeah, very good question there. Okay, I think each of us has a different measure, right? Imagine internally there's a ruler within us. So some of us may see achieving certain things as, natural. It's my natural innate drive to want to achieve, to attain. And yeah, I feel like, each achievement that I get, it motivates me to do more. Yeah, to excel. So that's fine. But maybe to some others, that becomes stressful. I think too much of the stress may result in some body issues. Some of us maybe gastric problems, headaches, or even mental health impact as well. So I think paying attention to body signs is something that I would recommend that we consider. But when we are really busy, the rat race, just doing the same thing, routine over and over, we will neglect that aspect. So I think first of all is to pay attention to our body, what our bodily signs are telling us. Another suggestion that I can give is seek out community, support group, resources for help, for ideas, advice, but you don't necessarily have to take it. Just have to be open-minded, listen and hear from different perspectives. And maybe some people have gone through similar experiences, then they can share how it feels like and what they did, and you can learn from it. Whether you want to do, that's another thing. Yeah. Celebrate small wins. Yeah, so don't always have to see achievements as something really big, major goal that I have to achieve, then I'll be happy. Because sometimes when you're overachiever, doesn't matter whether you achieve it or not, you still end up feeling like, that's actually not what I want. Okay, or what's next, right? Then it becomes a counterintuitive. So I think in this case, I refer to like every small wins matters. Yeah, and celebrate that, give gratitude, and yeah, celebrate together with people. I think also that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up, Audrey. I think in the process of achieving, it's always like, there's still more to achieve. Geraldine, go ahead.
Sabrina, I saw some questions in the Q&A about failure, and I think we've been talking about achievements
I
so
was
much.
gonna ask that to you, Geraldine. Okay, go ahead. Why don't you? Can you ask yourself the question?
I also read about the question.
Own self, ask for yourself.
I also ask for myself. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, right? And thanks so much to this your name, so anonymous attendee, for like bringing up the topic about like failure, relationship with failure and everything. And truth be told, like based on my own experience, I've also had multiple failures, right? Not only school, right, exams here and there, but also like as a content creator. Sometimes you write things that are not popular, you say things that are not popular, and then you get like negative feedback from your audience, in romantic relationships and everything. And how I think about failure is two ways. The first thing is that don't say anything to yourself that you will not tell your best friend. Right. So yesterday, a good friend of mine, she actually is going through a breakup, and she told me that, is it because she's not good enough? And then like I stopped her there and I say like, hey, you know what? If this thing happened to your other friend, like, will you say that, it's because that person is not good enough? No, right? So why do you tell that to yourself? Like, you're supposed to be kind to yourself, right? And all that. So I think that's the first step to managing failure. The second step is, of course, to think about things in a way that I feel that everything in life happens for a reason. It sounds like cliche, but okay, maybe let's phrase it in a different way. Every door that closes, right, is another one that actually opens. So just to share with you guys, when I was in my a few years ago, I really, really wanted to work for Uber because I felt that this technology is like so life-changing and it changed my life. I don't need to put up with those like grumpy driver, right? Just like use my phone and book and then like the car come and everything. So I really, really, really was dying to work for Uber. I applied for many roles and then I went through like many rounds. But the thing is, if I got into Uber, what would have happened to me, right? All of us know what happened to Uber. The staff got laid off and everything. So it's actually a good thing that I didn't get into that company, right? Looking on hindsight and all that. So sometimes like when doors close, actually it's a blessing. And then another door open for you. And the door that opened for me is the world of software, which I have immensely like enjoyed and like love. And I'm so proud that I'm working in the software industry also. So this is how I perceive failures. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's also something that I've experienced for myself. And, what feels like a failure at that point in time when you go forward and you look back. And I think Steve Jobs said this, right? Like when you look back, you kind of connect the dots and it all kind of makes sense, right? But in the moment, it's going to feel like shit, right? When you're rejected, when things that don't work out the way that you want it to. So, personally, I think it's more of a test and learn kind of thing. Everything is an experiment. You don't really fail, but you gotta learn from it, right? And you gotta make peace and try to accept and move on, move forward with it. Does anyone else want to share about failure? It's a juicy one, and we can do a whole talk about it.
Yeah, if I may
Audrey.
chime in at this point, I think failures are not indicative of our worth. I think oftentimes we kind of relate those two things together, right? If I fail means that I'm not worthy or I'm less worthy. So it's actually not. Yeah, you're worthy just as you are, and each day your success can look very different on a day-by-day basis. So yeah, I think that brings me back to the point of being open-minded and willing to consider different perspectives. And also maybe one last thing for me is like, think of it as, we are in the age of longevity. We have like 100-year life, right? If we live to be that old to that extent. So there's actually many versions of us. We can reinvent ourselves, redefine success, and try out different things.
Definitely. Yeah. A failure in life is not the end, right? There's always many more opportunities to try again and yeah, experience things differently. Okay, so I've maybe one more question from our audience, and then we've got quite a few, so we'll try to get to that in our via social media. We can ask after the talk. So one question would be, does anyone relate to the idea of perfectionism, and do you have any advice on how to manage it better? Throwing it out there. Who wants to take this? Asnawi, anything to say?
Actually, for me, I see myself as a perfectionist lah. So I do relate to this
Okay, so
for sure.
perfect. Yeah.
Like, like I always feel the slides can be better. This can be better. How to manage it lah? I feel it's just timeline lah. Timeline is in the work concept perspective, right? It's always timeline, right? You need to send the client by 5 p.m. By hook or by crook. So for me, I like timeline because when there's time pressure, there's pressure on me, right? I do quite well. So I think it depends on the person. So like my driver, my push is always like having pressure, especially time pressure. So if I have a time pressure, I do quite well. So what I will do is, one of my strengths is also accountability in Gallup, right? And for me, what I'll do is I'll get somebody to, okay, look, Sabrina, let's have a sync up maybe next Friday, right? I'll show you what I have. So by next Friday, 12 p.m. by hook or by crook, I need to show you already. So I think that stops because you can go forever and ever lah, in terms of how you want to make it more perfect, right? So for me, that's the best lah. Yeah, it's just to put time limit and then tell yourself, okay, after that, no more already. Then really no more already because you need to send. Yeah, so I think that's one way. Yeah, that's how I do it.
Okay, thank you, Asnawi. And so I'm just checking the time, and we're close to the end of our talk. So I'm gonna ask a final question, and this actually is inspired by one of our Q&A folks, someone in the audience, and I'm just gonna tweak it a little bit. So my question for everyone, and let's keep our answers short. My question for you is, how would you define a good life for yourself? I'm just giving a pause, right? How do you define a good life for yourself? And if you're in the audience as well, if you want to share your answers, yeah, feel free to share in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. What does a good life look like to you? Geraldine, would you like to go?
Yep. I don't have like a super concrete definition, but my idea of a good life is something that is quite holistic. I would say, of course, good health, right? Physical health, because your body and your health is what you use to experience this world. And it's something that a lot of us take for granted until we fall sick or something like that, right? And the second part is, of course, relationships, close with meaningful relationships in our life. That's also a critical part of success. And the third thing is that I think achieving our own fullest potential, right? The path that is right for us and not the path that society thinks is the right path for us. So these are some of the three things that I'll consider as a measure of success.
Thank you so much. All right, over to you, Audrey.
For me, a good life would means that I can go to sleep at night thinking and feeling that, yeah, I think all's well today.
That's so nice. Yeah, it resonates a lot with me. I've had a couple of nights where I wasn't sleeping so good. So it all starts with sleep, right? Sleep is so important to our lives. And finally, Asnawi, how about you?
Yeah, I think the questions are quite solid, very, very thought-provoking. So I was thinking about it. I think for me, how I define a good life is really my parents, really, really. So like if I, at the end of the day, before I pass away, right? Or, if I'm very sure or like I can make sure that my parents are proud of who I am or happy of who I am right now as I'm growing up, I think that's a good life for me. It doesn't mean whether I have to be super successful in work, I have a lot of money, right? If my parents want to spend more time with me and I can give it to them, I'll do it. Yeah, so for me that's a good life lah. Yeah.
Wow. It's very heartwarming, everyone, to share. And I'm also seeing the chat going in there, and I'm seeing folks share. Yeah, a good life to me is feeling a sense of self-fulfillment where I'm content with where I'm at in life. There's love, growth, giving thanks. Well, someone Ron has shared that it means having the problems I want to have. That's actually a really good perspective as well. Yeah, and finally, yeah, having more choices to do what I like and being able to impact someone in a positive way, big or small. So that also resonates for sure. All right, everyone. And on that note, thank you so much for sharing and joining our session tonight on unpacking the overachieving Asian. So I think the main takeaway from tonight's conversation is about really kind of reframing our perspective on what achievement really is. And achieving at the end of the day really is quite subjective. And what's most important is that we need to know ourselves, right? From our strengths, we also need to know what helps us stay grounded and balanced, and ultimately what does achievement look like for us based on our own values, based on who we are as people. So wishing everyone a good night, and thank you so much for joining us today. So if you would like to learn more about Calm Collective, please stay connected with us. We're on LinkedIn, Telegram, Instagram, TikTok, all of these grams as well. And we also have CalmCon happening soon. So that's our well-being and mental health festival coming up. We've stealthily rolled it out recently. It's the second year happening, and we have our super early birds out now. And we're also getting new volunteers on board. If you're interested in joining us, drop us a note at hello@calmcollective.asia. You can also send a note onto Instagram. And finally, if you would like to bring a talk like this to your workplace, you can also get in touch with us at hello@calmcollective.asia.